This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. That Bob Marley poster was actually given to me by one of the owners of indoor shop. They're called indoor swap meets, and he sold incense and bags, mainly African, and things like that. And I asked him, "Do you have any posters?" I said, "I don't have any money on me right now, but if you have a Bob Marley poster, I'll come back." And he said, "I do." And he had these, and he said, "You know what? Here you go. Just go ahead." So I put that up, and I actually had to super glue it to my wall. But as long as I live here, you know what I'm saying? Um, so, but yeah, that's how the Bob Marley poster came about. I was going with my friend to the indoor swap meet to pay for his third phone. He's got like three phones and, all this other stuff going on. And, because he has a personal business. Uh, so he needs a separate phone for family, business, and the girls, you know what I'm saying? So, I was on a live stream earlier, and somebody asked, "What is or how does male to male relationships kind of work?" So I kind of gave two little quick answers, but I think maybe I'll take a little bit more time on this. Like I said, you know, if I'm gonna have the ability to think my thoughts, I'm going to try to think them all the way through. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just, oh, I was always kind of an outsider as a kid. Well, I still had male to male relationships growing up, and I can sit in a group of men and not be ostracized. You know what I'm saying? So I can have male to male relationships. It's just, I just am one of those people that tend to spend more time alone or doing solitary things, or things that not everybody does, like I smoke herb. Not everybody smokes herb, so there's only few people that I can hang out with. But on male to male relationships, in times of cold I will bring the wood. That's from Bob Marley's Stir It Up. How does it go? If I can only love one person at a time, I would live literally blind to all possibilities. That's the stereotypical um, man woman, or man woman woman, but mainly the stereotypical man to woman relationship. If I can only love my wife and my children and my family, how can I possibly love anything else? You know. But if I can manage to think the same thought one time, two times, the 10,000 times, till I am the answer to that question. Believe in your history, know your story, come to understand why, come to realize why. Why, in the end, life is the gift that we are given. Think large, think long, hard thoughts. Feel the bass pound in your chest. Lay next to someone that you might never see again. Those were thoughts I had when I was younger in the military. After I got divorced, I had girlfriends. I mean, I was 19, 20 years old, had a couple extra dollars in my pocket. I could take you to some of your favorite little restaurant and get your lunch. Or we could go to a movie, or, if it's been a particularly long night, we didn't have to walk all the way back to the subway. We could take this, I could afford a taxi. And my girls were good about that. They never really stressed me out about money, like I said. And I think, a couple of them kind of wish that it could have lasted longer, but after I got arrested, that ended my ability to get German work paperwork, Arbeitsamt, I think they're called, work stamps or something. So I couldn't get my work paperwork after I got arrested. So it just became, I mean, was I depressed and nihilistic? Yes, but I was surrounded by castles and 1400 buildings, and beautiful girls that liked the fact that I had a little caramel to my skin and an accent, and that I dressed so sharply. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, but men to men relationships. I've had a couple in my life. Growing older, I'm 51 now, and the last like serious, man to man relationship I've had has lasted about since I moved here. You know, I guess it's been about 8 years, and it's difficult because of the age. There's not much of it. I'm used to dealing with more of an age difference or no difference at all. Like I either feel there's an age difference with the men I hang out with because I used to hang out with older men. Growing up, I was more interested in what the third grade teacher had to tell me than what Billy had to tell me, especially what Billy had to tell me about Susie, you know what I'm saying? I'd rather know. Like, I remember I had this one third grade substitute teacher. This guy was so cool, and he was there for a long time. And I remember I would ask him questions like, "Hey, I was just reading about the old Grecian naval battles and stuff. I'm all, how did they fight? Like that doesn't make sense. Like they said that they had, and they would and he would tell me, oh, the guys would stand on top and they would ram the ships into each other and then run onto each other's ship. And I'm like, but that makes no sense. If you damage your, and he's like, that's just how war was. But he had answers to questions like that, so I thought he was a very interesting man. And as I've grown up, I've always spent my time with either men my age who have men who are older friends, or older men. I mean, there's a couple guys my age that I kick it with that are more youthful, but that's mainly the guys that I used to play sports with and stuff. Like I could still connect with the wrestler and stuff. If I see you training on a 104-degree day and you're running down Highland Avenue, I know that you're probably training for something. And if it's just for your own personal goals, then congratulations, because you know what I'm saying. You're running on a 104-degree day. You're running 5 miles. That's something to be proud of, because that's something that could easily kill some people. I mean, some people don't like. I remember when I used to train, I would try not to take breaks, because every time I took a break, it would take me so much longer to get back into it. So I could train for 3 years, and then I had to take like a 4 month break, 3 month break because I injured myself. Then I trained for 6 months, had to take a 1 month break because I injured my. Then I trained, for 2 more years before I injured myself. But I was never one that could constantly train. Like I've been training for 11 years. I hear that question sometimes from men. I've been training for 11 years. And why? What is there? And that's the whole thing. That's what you're training for. Like I did everything I ever did in my life. And now I have to walk up and down a flight of stairs with dead nerves and a crippled hand. And it's like, if I lose my balance, it gets worse, exponentially worse. So it's an adventure. But I trained my whole life for this. I mean, some of the things I've done in my life, I've walked balanced on certain things. I mean, I'm not parkour level good. I can't do any of that stuff, but I've done some pretty dumb stuff, where falling at that moment would have been a lot of damage, if not death, or so, or worthy of wanting death at least. So of men to men, I've been respected by most men I've ever met. I haven't really been too disrespected by anybody. A couple of younger kids that were like 18, 19, and it was just brash and it was nothing personal anyways, you know what I'm saying? But I haven't really been disrespected by too many people. Um, sometimes people are just trying to do what they're trying to do. They're just trying to sell you a phone plan. They're just trying to, get you to buy aluminum siding for your house. They're trying to fill their pot back at home. You know what I'm saying? So I just let them. But like I said, for most men to men relationships that I've ever had, male to male relationships, when I was younger, it was before I fell into my mental illness. I hung out with the kind of crowd that, like I said, it was everybody was working at an upscale. It was at Fridays, so everybody was working at the waitresses and stuff would walk with hundreds a night in tips. You know what I'm saying? The bartenders were walking on a Friday night with hundreds in tips. You know what I'm saying? That was back in the '90s, so I don't even know what that would possibly. Well, with the recession now, but back in the '90s, a bartender could walk with $400 a night, working a 6, 8 hour shift. You know what I'm saying? And so these were the people I spent time with. Bar backs, waiters, and we went to movies. But like I said, each of these people, they were a waiter. They were trying to start a business. They had graduated from college with some kind of degree that they couldn't get a job in, so they bounced back by waiting and living at home. But while they were waiting and living at their parents' house, on a Thursday, hey, let's go here for. I just read in a LA Review magazine that this place has 4 stars. I got us a table on a Thursday, because the weekends are too booked. Okay, I'm only making I was making like $6 an hour. Minimum wage was like four something. I was making six something. And like I said, we were going to restaurants where it was like I was paying, 20, $30 a plate, plus the $6 for the iced tea. I mean, fried chicken at the one spot was 25, $30. Shrimp kebabs were $20. Pink's taco, the or Pink's hot dog, even that was a couple bucks, you know what I'm saying? And but at the same time, this guy got me on a soccer team with him, which was cool. Um, the first time that we talked, I don't know how he just walked up to me one day because I had been talking to a couple of the girls, you know what I'm saying? And they had been taught, one of them had been talking to him and said, we should meet. So he tells me, hey man, so I hear you read books about Buddhism. And he said, I've read this one book, but I don't understand it. And I told him what I thought about it. And he talked to his dad. He was one of those guys because he lived at home with his dad, and him and his dad still talk like that. So his dad actually agreed with me and said that my point of view was valid. It was a rough point of view, but it was a valid point of view. So then my friend said, okay, well, and then at the same time, me and my friend's dad both listen to Chuck Mangione. So my friend started to say, okay, this is like my like hanging out with my dad. You know what I'm saying? But we would still go to clubs, and he'd still tell me, oh, you ain't got no game, and you know what I'm saying. And but like I said, when I started to get sick, mentally ill, they got me to buy a pickup truck with a camper, and inside the camper it was lined with carpet. And I said, "Why do I need this? I don't even need a car right now, And they said, "No, just go ahead and pick it up." Because I didn't need a car, but I was riding the bus, and they said, "Pick it up." And within 6 months of buying that car, I had dropped out of school, lost my job, and then I got I just floated for a long time um, in that car. And when I was going to school in the welding program, I would go. I've been from TJ to Santa Cruz looking for work as a welder, and I could not find it. There was no jobs, nowhere. So, my friends saw that I was heading down a certain path, and they gave me a place to stay on wheels, where I wasn't just stuck at my mom and my dad's house or homeless or anything like that. So I could still go to school. I could still, like I said, I was in LA County looking for work, even though I didn't have an LA certification. I only had a city of SB, you know what I'm saying? And, so, but eventually I broke it off from them because at one point I was part, I did feel part of the pact. Even though by the time I came back to California, I was already an Army veteran. So I had been shown respect by certain people, and I had come to understand that some people look at me through a different point of view because I am an Army veteran. When they find out I'm an Army veteran, or if somebody's told them before they meet me, they expect a certain amount of something from me. You know what I'm saying? And when I told them I was an Army veteran, but I was interested in Buddhism, and I listened to Bob Marley, and smoked weed and danced at drum circles like he thought, but at the same time, me and his dad agreed, and we both listened to Chuck Mangione, so he thought, oh, this guy's cool, you know what I'm saying? So he got me on the soccer team, and we would go, like I said, to restaurants that, because he, I mean, foodie, you know what I'm saying? And we'd go out to 4-star restaurants, or, that had just opened up in LA. And like I said, I'd spend half a day pay, but I lived with my parents too, and I drove a 20-year-old Cadillac. So I'd spend half a day's pay on dinner and a drink, and then we'd still go out that night to a bar. Oh, this bar was in a movie. You know what I'm saying? So that's how my male to male friendships were. Like I said, as long as you could play, but as soon as shit starts getting heavy, you got to remember these guys are, when you're in your early 20s and you see someone start to lose control mentally, it's scary. And then the worse they get, the scarier it gets. And I'm not saying that I was that horribly bad, but I'm sure I was. I mean, to see me over time, especially during my more, schizoid, paranoid times, where I was just on another level, you know what I'm saying? And it was a negative one, but I had to work through that because, like I said, I have to realize in the end that life is a gift that we are given. And some of us, we lose our mom and dad at a young age. Some of us are born even poorer than I was. Some of us had to do or had to go through some horrible ass shit, and they don't complain. And in my freedom, I complain. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I continue to do certain things. I continue to smoke the herb. I continue to sit cross-legged and try to meditate and think heavy thoughts. And some of those thoughts, but a lot of that takes a lot of my time. you know I mean, before I had my mental illness, when I was in the army, I usually had my own room. And when they did give me a roommate eventually, he got deployed to Bosnia for 6 months, so I still had my own room. And like I said, I would just bow my head for hours, raise my head every 30, 45 minutes, bow my head again, breathe deep, raise my head, and then if the lights, battalion lights weren't on by a certain time, I would just start writing poetry. All I had been doing is shallow breathing and looking at one point in the distance, for battalion lights, and then I would just write, a couple paragraphs, a couple pages, you know, poetry, and I had never really written poetry, and but I had influences, like I said, uh, you know, me and my scout partner would go out to this one pub, the American pub a lot, or it was a Scottish pub, but the American soldiers would take it over. And I remember one time, this gothic German girl came in. She was goth hill psychobilly, and they were having a psychobilly concert, and I sat through. Nobody asked me to leave. If they ever ask you to, if you ever go to another country and they ask you to leave, you should leave. They're being very polite. So nobody ever asked me to leave the psychobilly concert. So I figured they weren't neo-Nazi. Plus, I didn't see any swastikas and certain tattoos. So I sat through most of it, and then at one point she comes up and she starts talking, and in English because she knows I'm a U. I guess she knows I'm a U.S. soldier, and she was actually pretty cool. And then she had a friend that was a college student, that was a U.S. college student, um, going to a community college in Germany, um, that was backed by the military. So it was a Department of Defense community college in Germany for those that were, already graduated from high school. So, and she was living in the dorms, and she introduced me to her, and I let her read my poetry, and she told me she liked one line, and I was like, you know what, that was a good line, though. I mean, I have to admit. But like I said, male to male, man to man, the men to men are good, but when when the emotion when a man starts losing his ability to control his mind, like if you're all alcoholics, it's cool, but then the minute you stop being an alcoholic, you're like, damn, these guys are crazy. They're driving drunk. You know what I'm saying? So it's the exact opposite, though. When everybody's working two jobs and they've got their SAG cards and they're making movies in Hollywood on their 2 week vacations, and they're doing all this, and then all of a sudden someone starts to lose the ability to control their daily actions, and it makes them think, how close was I to him? You know what I'm saying? What drew? Why was I drawn to somebody that would one day end up basically a vagabond? You know what I'm saying? Oh well, we romantically just call it a failed artist. You know what I'm saying? But that's the whole thing. Men to men, it's like that. When a man is strong, his friend's strength multiplies. When one of them is weakened, they all weaken, and then they all, like the Tao says, they turn their back on it. You know what I'm saying? They can't. They'd rather be strong as a group than weakened by one. Like that's cancer. You know what I'm saying? So they turn their back on it. It's just the way that it is. And then, but that's what I'm saying. If you can only love one person at a time, how can you possibly come up with a answer to 1,000 questions? Because so many questions have to deal with more than just one person. How do we do this? How do we do that? How do we feed the poor and house the homeless? And just because a man commits a crime, does he need to live in a cell? You know what I'm saying? Like, can we do better than that? Can we get our kids to learn 2 or 3 languages, and play an instrument, like they do in other countries? Like, can we do that? These little things, that we've even forgotten that have been done, you know. What can we do, as men? So when men are working on but when men get tied down with, oh shit, now I've got a kid on the way, so I got a job that I will pay the bills, and I'll still be able to have a studio in my house, and that's cool. But I'm on the outside, and I'm like, hey man, what about that road trip that we never took? What about driving down to Chile in a Jeep? You know what I'm saying? Stopping along the road along the way so I could get high. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what about that? You were the one that brought that dream up. You know what I'm saying? I got a backpack I can pack tonight and a visa. I'm good. You know. So I mean, that's the whole thing, man to man. Um, when we're young, we're all fighting for the same things. We're all fighting for the same dollar. We're all fighting for the nice house, for the nice car, for the pretty wife. But as you get older, um, what was it before all that you were interested in? Were you the kind of kid that really thought canoes like Indians were super cool? Or did you fantasize about fucking Godzilla? Like, oh, Godzilla's awesome. Like, all that. I mean, you got to realize people make livings doing that. People have conventions about, I mean, there are guys that spend their whole lives learning how to tie fishing lures, and they get so good they can sell them for hundreds of dollars, you know. I mean, there are levels of achievement in life. I myself am not homeless and I'm not in jail or in a mental institution. So I'm at a certain level where I'm as free as I've ever been. Um, what can I say? I mean, when I was 19, I was in the army. I had my own room, but it was a lot. It was fun. It was a fun life. But could I say I was free? I was a free man, not necessarily, and that's why I enjoyed it so much, because every day had purpose and intention. You know what I'm saying? I had to stay on the team. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what a lot of people don't understand when you're not in the army. Oh, how could you do that? Like, how could you put on a 65-pound rucksack in 100 or 90 something degree heat with 80% humidity and march 12 miles? How could you do that? Because you want to make the team. You know what I'm saying? So, and then that's, male to male too. Like I said, one thing my partner told me that has stuck with me over the years, the same guy I'm telling you about that used to take me to the movies and we would go out to eat. Him and his girl, he actually ended up marrying her and they've got like 2 or 3 kids. Um, Last I knew, which was about 15, maybe 18 years ago, I bumped into him last. And but he once told me the Oscar Wilde quote. He's all, you're never gonna join a club that will accept you as a member. Okay, what can I say? I mean, I can only imagine the giggles that would erupt from a room full of people that thought like me at odd hours of the night. you know. But like some other people in my life, I remember him. I remember his name was Eric, and he was a good friend. But like I said, easy as the breeze. You know what I'm saying? When I grew up, I thought the Buddhist teaching of non-attachment was to not get attached, to not form bonds, to not form bonds, to not feel love, to not, I was supposed to be open to everything higher than man, you know what I'm saying? Um, but I had come to realize that that is how you live life as man. You can live to any level that you want, that's possible. You can make yourself as colorful, you can bright, you can wear all black, you can put makeup on your face, you can pierce your nose. You can do a lot um, with just how you express yourself. But what people really look forward to from men to men, from what I remember when I hung out with mainly younger men, at a certain age, I pretty much stopped hanging out with most people, and then I'd only have like one or two friends at a time, and they were younger. And I can't say that I was really mentoring them, but I was kind of like the uncle, the army veteran uncle that couldn't get it, that couldn't hold down a job. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, so men to men, you want to build each other. You want to stabilize each other. You want to fortify each other. You know what I'm saying? Life and everything else will grind you down and turn you into dust, so you build each other like that. And then the men to women relationship, or partner to partner, however you want to look at that, that's the one that brings you water. That's the one that brings the wood to burn the fire, and the one that brings the water to cool you down. You know what I'm saying? So they used to say that at a time it took a whole village. I mean, somebody made sure that grandma ate. Somebody made sure that so and so's kids didn't, get bit by the poisonous snake that rolled into the garden. Like, there was a time when that's how it was. And will we ever be there again? I don't know. But men to men, they try to build those kind of small communities with several trusted people that they hope. I think men hope that their friendships last forever. I don't know. I've heard that, I'm not going to say anything about women, but I've heard that men hope that their relationships with their male friends, like if I meet you at 23 and we're both living at our parents' house, but we're going to school and we're getting degrees, and we finally get hired and we have to live in an apartment for 10 years, and one of us gets married and has kids, and the other one, and it's like, okay, well, by the time we're 50, we're going to be like, damn, bro, remember back then? You know what I'm saying? I think men think like that. And that, I think that's mainly the only negative part of my travel, is that I've never sat still for 20, 30 years with a group of guys and learned anything. Everything I've ever learned has been, on the fly, a whisper in the wind, lyrics from an album. You know what I'm saying? It's like, or pages from a book. But what do I remember of male to male relationships? Yeah, I mean, I said it cynically. They love it when you have enough money to play, but play means a lot of things. Like I said, play means you can, if everybody's on the soccer team and you show up day one, you show up to the field and they're like, oh, you can play. You can play soccer. You've got your cleats. You know the rules. You played a little in high school or something, so you can play. Or if they're all chess players, they want, the first time they play you in chess, they don't want to obliterate you, and they want, oh, this kid's played chess before. But that's the thing. Men, we kind of look for these similarities. Like, how does this person? Oh, like one thing with my friend. I once told him he was pragmatic and he didn't know how to take that. You get the job done, bro. You think in terms of positive and negative, and you get the job done. What's wrong with that? But he thought he was a creative movie type because he went to film school, and he didn't want to think that he was an actual get it done kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, but when we're younger, we have our egos. I still have ego, but we have our egos, and I think it's our egos that collide the most because we can see um, ourselves in each other. And like I said, I had a mental breakdown in my 20s, so I understand why I did not reach out after that. You know what I'm saying? Because I had come to a realization that I I had driven, like I said, I had the mental breakdown while I had the pickup truck and the camper, and I had driven from Tijuana to Santa Cruz, and I had found spots that I thought were completely magical. I might have been hallucinating the whole time, but everywhere I went, even when I was, hadn't cleaned myself in 2 or 3 days, the way I was treated, I mean, as much as I talk bad about other people, and this and that, and I start all people this, all people that, at the same time, all those people treated me well, probably better than I would have treated myself. They served me when I was dirty, hadn't brushed my teeth or wiped my ass in 3 days, living in the back of my pickup truck, sweating, in a 104-degree day with my two jackets on, three shirts, and two pairs of pants. And they treated me well. So, man to man, like I said, if you can build your fellow man, it's easy to have relationships. Um, Man to woman, bring the wood for the fire and she'll bring the water. You know what I'm saying? And then, but we must be able to think beyond one to one love. Times of intimacy, you know what I'm saying? And times of intimacy take time. I understand. You meet someone, after meeting them a couple times, you think to yourself, this one's, different. This one caught my eye. So you take time and you work your way up into meeting them again and, all that other stuff, or you can choose not to, you know what I'm saying? But intimacy takes time. But if you've never seen the naked back of a woman in real life, um, you should see that. And then at the same time, after you see the naked back of a woman in real life, you should try to see a tattooed back of a woman in real life. And you should, oh, you know what I'm saying? And here's one in a dress, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, like I said, as a man, I look at that. I look at dudes too. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I will not be afraid to admit that, especially if they start getting too big, because I'm like, damn, bro, I might have to be nice to this guy, I can't be my asshole self to some guy that can just smash me, you know what I'm saying? Put his hand on my head and push me down. Some guy did something like that to me once. I mean, I was after when I was in high school, my senior year, I wrestled, and I was on the C team, which was the third line team, and but I weighed 132, and I wrestled anywhere between 132 and 160, depends on who they needed to wrestle at that weight. So, but I came in at 132, and I would wrestle 160, so I give up like almost 30 pounds. You know what I'm saying? And but I was C team. And after I got done wrestling, um, I don't know how it comes about, but I remember one time I got a job at a movie theater in Florida, and there was this big guy, and I think he was a college student at the time, and he was like an ex heavyweight high school champion wrestler, and we were at the movie theater in the lobby wearing white shirts with red bow ties and dress shoes and slacks, and we were talking about, somehow we started talking about wrestling. I don't know who started it, probably me. And anyway, I end up shooting in on him, and he's like, "Bro, that is not what you want to do." And you know what? Every heavyweight I've ever shot in has told me that. Don't do that in real life. That's a, but this is the whole thing. I won, right? If I would have tried anything else, it wouldn't have worked. But when I shot in, it worked. So I won. I won at least a point, you know what I'm saying? But they always tell me, bro, don't do that in real life. Like, I'm not gonna single leg take down some guy in a street fight, you know what I'm saying? The continual evolution of the East Coast beat.